Hello and welcome. Today, we are tackling a really big question. Is it actually possible for an average Indian investor to build a 100 crore portfolio? We're going to break down a roadmap using some incredible insights from a top industry expert.
Okay, let's just start with the number itself. 100 crores. I mean, for most of us, that figure feels like a complete fantasy, right? Something you only hear about with the super-duper wealthy.
But here's the thing. Is it really just a fantasy, or could this be a real, actual, achievable destination for someone starting their investment journey today? That's the big question we're going to dig into.
So, we're going to kick things off by looking at why this huge number might not be as crazy as it sounds, especially when you start to look at how our idea of normal changes over time.
To really get how this impossible number becomes possible, we just have to look at how benchmarks evolve. Think about it. Back in the 1980s, if you scored 60% on an exam, you were a superstar. In cricket, a score of 250 was considered a match-winning total. Now, fast forward to today, getting 90% is pretty common, and cricket teams are smashing past 400 runs. What was once completely unthinkable is now just the new standard.
And that's the whole point, right? Just like we've seen in school and in sports, our financial goals can also make that same kind of exponential leap. With the right game plan and, this is the most important part, the right discipline, that 100 crore figure starts to look less like some far-off dream and a lot more like a real destination.
All right, so if 100 crores is our destination, what's our ride? What's the best vehicle to actually get us there? Well, the expert we're drawing from has a very, very clear answer on this. Now, this is where things get interesting. Because most people, they chase returns first. But this expert, he flips that completely on its head. The very first question you should ask is my money safe? The second question, can I get my money out when I need it? And only then, after you've got those two sorted, do you even think about the third question, how much will it grow? Returns are last. And that leads us straight to what the expert calls managed assets. We're talking about things like mutual funds and maybe some more specialized stuff like PMS and AIFs. But the core idea is simple. These are all portfolios managed by professionals. They give you diversification and risk control right out of the box, which, you'll notice, ticks those first two boxes of safety and liquidity immediately. And I love this analogy the expert uses. He says managed assets are like a good Indian thali. And why is that? Because a thali has everything you need all in one place. It's got the taste, the nutrition, the minerals, the vitamins. It's a complete, perfectly balanced solution for all your financial needs. Just brilliant.
Okay, so we've got our destination, and we've got our vehicle, but now we hit the biggest roadblock on this entire quest. And believe it or not, it isn't the market.
All right, get ready for this, because this next idea is going to sound totally backward, but it's one of the most powerful concepts in investing. And it's this: bad returns are the best returns. What on earth does that mean? Well, it means when you're investing systematically, like with an SIP, market downturns are actually your best friend. They are a massive opportunity to buy more for less.
But the problem is, our brains just aren't wired for that kind of thinking. Look at this comparison here. When the market's flying high, investing feels tasty, right? It's easy to keep putting money in, even though you're buying fewer units because they're expensive. But when the market is down, oh, that's a testing time. Everything in your gut is screaming to stop your SIP. And that is precisely when you're buying more units for the same amount of money. It feels awful, but that's where the magic happens. Winning this mental battle is everything. So, if we know our own brain is the biggest challenge, how do the pros pick the right funds for this long journey? Well, they use a completely different playbook.
Instead of just chasing whoever did great last year, the strategy is, well, it's unconventional. First, you identify the really great fund houses with proven fantastic managers. Second, you narrow in on a category you like, say flexi-cap funds. Then, and here's the kicker, you look through that list of great managers and you find one who's having a tough time right now. Their performance is down. That's when you invest. You're making a bet that tough times don't last, but great managers do.
And when you think about it, the logic is, well, it's just so simple. We all know the basic rule of buying stocks is to find great businesses when they're on sale. So why wouldn't we apply that exact same logic to the incredibly talented people who are managing our money?
Okay, so we have this cool contrarian strategy, but where do we actually apply it?
The expert points to 5 massive megatrends that are basically set to power the Indian economy for the next 20, maybe 30 years.
Well, here are the 5 big ones. First up is healthcare, which is being called the new FMCG because of our changing lifestyles. Then you've got consumption, which is pretty obvious. As incomes rise, people just spend more. Third is energy and power. And this is being massively driven by new tech like AI, data centers, and of course, electric vehicles. Fourth is manufacturing, which is really starting to gain traction globally. And finally, BFSI, that's banking and financial services, which is booming as our economy gets more and more digital and formalized. So we've covered a lot, right? The massive goal, the right vehicle to get there, a pretty smart strategy, but we're going to end with the single most important piece of this entire puzzle, the one thing that will decide whether you succeed or you fail.
And here it is. The biggest risk to your portfolio isn't the market. It isn't the economy. It's not politics. The single biggest threat to your financial future is your own conduct. It's your own intelligence getting in your own way at the absolute worst time.
And honestly, this is where the real value of a good advisor comes into play. Their main job isn't to pick some hot stock or fund that's going to double next year. Their real job is to be your behavioral coach. It's to manage you and to keep you disciplined when every fiber of your being is telling you to panic and jump ship.
And that leaves us with one final and I think really crucial question for you to think about. We spend all this time analyzing markets, funds, economies, but if the biggest risk of all is our own behavior, who's managing that?